Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. The biggest headline in the last few hours has been the governed versus the government itself. When you look at the 7 demands made by the protesters yesterday, that's one of the biggest stories. But there was no bullet, there was no tear gas, there was civility in how most of these things were handled. But when we look at the demands that they put forward, there are questions about the turn-up, also questions about the heavy deployment that happened yesterday. They make 7 demands. 1, the resignation of the Speaker. 2, the resignation of all the commissioners involved in corruption scandals. 3, they ask that the size of Parliament be reduced. 4, they also talk about MPs in corruption should also resign. They go ahead and their 5th demand is audit the lifestyle of MPs. The 6th is cutting salaries, and finally they say we need to continue to have these demonstrations happening. The question around these demonstrations yesterday was they were peaceful and they were according to Article 29. But when we look at the promises of Thursday, where some of them are saying they will be back to the streets, and Parliament says it will also be back in the House to make their condolences there. That's the biggest discussion tonight, but also we'll dig further into the President's speech where he discussed about wetlands in the countries. And we ask ourselves, do we have haves and have-nots in this country, especially looking at the demolitions happening selectively? Let me introduce the panel tonight. On my extreme left, Honorable Dombo Emmanuel Lumala, the Director of Communication and Information at the NRM Secretariat. Good evening, sir.
Well, good evening, and good evening to the panel and to our viewers. It's a pleasure for me to be back here again. I'm coming at a time when the national resistance movement and the country were mourning one of our SEC members, the late Honorable Aleper Simon Peter, who was coming yesterday for a SEC meeting and was involved in a fatal accident on the road. The police is still handling the investigations, find out what exactly happened. But we condole with members of the family, members of the party, the people of Karamoja, and the people of Uganda, because he was a former member of Parliament, was a good leader. And tomorrow they'll bring the body to Parliament to be mourned officially after church service in All Saints Church. And then on Friday, we shall have a special session of SEC at the National Resistance Movement headquarters. The national chairman is expected. And after that, they'll be transporting the body to the village for the traditional and official functions within the village where he was as a leader. And then burial will be on Tuesday next week. We send our condolences to the members of the family. It's very painful, but may the soul of the deceased rest in eternal peace.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dombo. Next to Honorable Dombo is Dr. Ivan Twino Muhwezi, who is the head of department at Public Policy and a lecturer of economics at Uganda Management Institute. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, panel members, and good evening, viewers.
Thank you very much. Yes.
It's something I want to mention from the academia. We need to know the role of the academia in the fight against corruption. And UMI has an anti-corruption center which has emerged, and I hope UMI should be visible in the fight against Against corruption. Thank you.
Wow.
Already preempting the conversation today. Next to him is no stranger, Mr. Chris Obore, the Director of Communication at Parliament. Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Nyangweso, for inviting me to sit in a panel of very eminent people. My boss, my immediate boss, a member of Parliament is my boss. I'm your servant. My friend Sarah, and my former boss, a former parliamentary commissioner. I think he will be the one defending Parliament, especially some of the rules and what they have. He's here to answer for them because he made them.
Are you scared?
But you know, I never get scared at all. I'm an arrow boy, Sarah. And I must confess that next to me is my former teacher.
Thank you.
Dr. Ivan taught me public policy.
Thank you very much. Next to Chris is Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, who is a Member of Parliament representing the people of Butambala County, but also the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee Central. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, viewers and the panelists. I'm humbled also to be here. And condolences to Simon Peter. I served with him in the last parliament. A very humble citizen. Even when you look at these people who are very extreme, he was never in the extreme stances. Always looked for a middle way to resolve issues. Very modest, very down to earth leader. So we lost a very eminent Ugandan, and condolences to the family.
Thank you very much. Lastly but not least, Dr. Sarah Berete, the Executive Director of Center for Constitutional Governance. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, viewers and fellow panelists. I'm glad to be back behind the headlines. Since people have given preamble statements, I will speak for the people, including those who were in the streets protesting against corruption.
Thank you very much. Seems we're going to have an interesting night. Chris, it's only right that we begin with you. First, especially with the communication that came out. We see communication coming out, Parliament will resume next week. Then hitherto, later on this evening, we see another one saying, tomorrow we'll have a sitting for the condolences of Honorable Simon Peter there. Why push Parliament to next week, yet you have just come from recess?
One, I think Parliament works on the business provided by the Business Committee. And the Business Committee sat this morning. I don't know how long they took. They have been meeting, deciding the agenda going forward. And the Government Chief Whip explained that the presiding officer, also chairing that meeting, had an engagement with the head of state. So in that circumstance, it was proper that the sitting was pushed. And it is not the first time a sitting of Parliament has been called and suspended. For the least times I've been there, it is normal in Parliament operations. Why was it called again? Because we got an unexpected occurrence. We have lost an eminent leader, a former member of Parliament, a member of the Central Executive Committee of the ruling party. Much as it is only sitting members who have an automatic appearance in the House for tribute, other government public leaders, national leaders, can be brought to Parliament if the government accords them that. So Honorable Aleper has been accorded a state funeral. And that's why the House had to be recalled to pay tribute to him. But the other suspension is within the workings of Parliament.
So you said that Parliament was suspended because of an engagement with the head of state.
Yes.
So has the engagement with the head of state been suspended for tomorrow's tribute?
The engagement was today. The sitting was today. I hope you got me right.
Very interesting.
But it is not Honorable Chivum is here, Honorable Dombo is here. It's not the first time they have suspended the plenary. They can even suspend it for 1 month, then recall it after 2 days. I've seen those situations.
Let me start with Dr. Sarah here. Doctor, the President came out and spoke on Saturday, said you're playing with fire, talked about foreign actors in his speech. The young people came out on Tuesday, stepped into the streets, various areas. I also saw some in Hoima, some in West Nile. When you see these demonstrations, what do you make of them?
Well, the President on, I think it was Saturday night.
8 p.m.
Yes, addressed the nation on 4 key issues: wealth creation, wetland management in the country, corruption, and demonstrations. When it came to demonstrations, he said the youth who were planning to march to Parliament were playing with fire. He also explained how there are street merchandise on Kampala streets. Yet, every now and then we see KCCA enforcers chasing poor women with mangoes and the yellow bananas throwing them on trucks, arresting them, some of them languishing in prison. And one would wonder what business takes place on Kampala streets, even when vendors are not allowed to make a stopover on the same streets. He went ahead to say that, talk about the people selling furniture in Bwaise. And if students or youth are planning to march to Parliament, I didn't know whether Bwaise was in question, because most of them were from Nassau Road, Wandegea, Garden City. They were in the city center, where all vendors have been cleared and the streets are empty and clear. So that statement, in my view, did not hold. The president went ahead to say that they are busy creating wealth and there's cheap food. Yes, there are some programs for wealth creation, but what is the percentage of unemployed youth? And what kind of wealth are we creating for unemployed youth? Even when most of them, especially those demonstrating, who are known as Gen Zs, the youth who don't know the world before the internet. We have had the Facebook shut down for now 4 years in Uganda. Most of the young people were making small business in e-commerce on Facebook. Uganda and President Museveni have shut down internet for 4 years. So what wealth are you creating for young people? The digital economy generates 17 trillion globally. It is much higher than the coffee global economy at $600 billion. And you shut down Facebook, you have a high cost of internet, and you tell Gen Zs that you are creating wealth for them. Is that the wealth for them or for my generation and older people? The president also went ahead to say that he will not allow disruption in the city. The president is among the 3 godfathers of the Constitution, the 1995 Constitution as amended. The Constitution has 3 godfathers. Retired Chief Justice Odochi, who presided over the Odochi Commission and the draft Constitution report that was adopted by the Constituent Assembly. The second godfather of the 1995 Constitution is the late Wapakabro, who presided over the constitution-making process in CA as the Speaker. And the third godfather of this Constitution is President Museveni, who initiated the constitution-making process by signing the terms of reference of the Odochi Commission, but also promulgated the Constitution on 8th October 1995. The Constitution has 3 articles that allow the young people or all Ugandans to protest and demonstrate peacefully. Article 1 of the Constitution, all power belongs to the people, and it has 4 clauses, which I will not go into detail. Article 17 of the Constitution on the duties of the citizen mandates all citizens of Uganda to fight corruption. Article 29 of the Constitution provides for a right to peacefully protest, petition, or demonstrate against any public matter as citizens. The directives of state policy in the Constitution enjoin all state institutions to ensure that the rights and freedoms of citizens are protected and guaranteed. So when the president takes to the media to warn people, those who want to protest, when he himself has made a call for citizens to fight corruption, a duty imposed on the citizens by the Constitution, why is he engaged in doublespeak? Does he want to fight corruption, or is engaged in his usual tokenism of arresting 2, 3 people, Then when the momentum of the citizen goes down, then the corruption dies and everybody forgets about it. The IGG has also been on record calling upon citizens to fight corruption, even when it's their duty. And citizens have witnessed severe conduct of corruption, some leaders celebrating corruption, telling poor people that it's okay to steal so long as you bring the crumbs of what you've stolen to the people. What do you expect people to do? Research on Gen Zs, this digital generation, as I conclude, shows that 47% of this generation, between 18 and 25, are so connected. They operate in a world of speed, scale, and scope. They are self-reliant, collaborative, and pragmatic. They cannot watch something going wrong and do nothing about it. This is research titled Gen Zs Explained, the Art of Living in a Digital Age by University of Chicago Press, 2021, but also the University of Pretoria, as well as Stanford Research combined, shows that the generation that you see demonstrating in Kenya, demonstrating in Uganda, the generation that demonstrated against the Gaza-Israel war in the US, is not going to watch a mess in their country and keep quiet. So leaders had better prepare for that.
Thank you very much. Honorable Dombo, let me come to you next. When you hear the president, and as Dr. Sarah said, 4 elements, he talked about corruption, wetlands, he talked about the demonstrations and called it playing with fire. What do you make of the president's address on Saturday, but also this demonstration against corruption?
Thank you very much, Bwana Nyangweso. And I want to thank my sister for the analysis of the president's speech and the situation as is. First and foremost, I want to thank the young people of Uganda for coming up to raise issues. Because when we grew up as young people, we didn't have the medium of expression that they have. We grew up in the villages. There was only one television, which would open at 6 p.m. and close at midnight. Journalists were revered people because they are the ones who are setting the agenda and making news. But right now, because of the digital improvement, because of technological advancement, but also because of UPE and USE, many young people have learned, have gone to school. They can access a lot of communication. They are journalists of their own right. They move with their television sets on their phones, and they make their own news and circulate it. They are content creators. So this is a real transformation in the population that we are talking about. That's why I must thank them for behaving maturely during the demonstrations yesterday, those who attempted to, but also to thank the members of the security force. Because unlike the Kyagulanyi demonstration when Honorable Kyagulanyi was arrested during the elections, you see that the conduct of the security agencies on the roads, even when they were fully deployed, it was totally different. There was a higher observance of human rights. They were, of course, they had to deploy to show force because the governments by nature, they are deterrent. They do things to deter. All governments. For us, we don't have here military parades where we parade planes to threaten and show the world the power that you have. But in countries like the US, all those modern countries, they have historical days where they bring out their arsenal to show the potential enemies, but also to show the capabilities to their nation, what they are capable of doing, and the assets that protect them. I want to thank Honorable my brother here for enabling government when they passed the budget. Because yesterday, the people of Uganda were able to see some of the equipment that you people have been supporting government to acquire, and to see the things that protect us. When you see members of those young people coming up to demonstrate, they must remember that President Museveni promised in the previous elections that he's going to secure the future of the people of Uganda. And what did he mean by securing the future? One, that the young people should have the right to demonstrate, but that right should not injure or infringe on the rights of others who may be trying to fend for their families in order to make a living and also perhaps pay rent and be able to survive. So the president talked about a number of things. He talked about the environment. I don't know how old you are, Mr. Nyangweso, when the Constitution was promulgated. There was one specific area where the president, during that time when he was promulgating the Constitution, he said he wasn't happy because of the decision that had been taken by the Constituent Assembly to say the land belongs to the people. And he gave his reasons during that time. When you look now, the way many Ugandans want to use the land and the environment, they don't know that this land that we have and we own now belonged to our predecessors. It belongs to us, but it also belongs to the future generation. And the only way the future generation can get it and use it well is when the current generation can ensure that they protect this land, they protect the environment to ensure that the future generations can also live on the same land. Because ever since you read the Bible that God created the land, have you heard God creating more land? God does not intend to do so, at least by what we read in the Bible and what we observe in science. Through geography, people may do some land reclamation, they may do all this, but they are doing to the land that was created at the time of creation. And God has never added on this land, yet the populations keep multiplying. So, the president has a civic duty as the leader of state and the font and the torch bearer, but also us as citizens of Uganda, when we have an opportunity to, whatever piece of land that you have, let us know that we must use it and protect it to ensure that the future generations get it. On corruption, I listened to the president first and foremost only when Chankwanzi during the leaders' retreat. It was the first time for me to attend such a retreat because I've never been a member of cabinet. But during that introspection retreat, it was very interesting because during the introspection, the government leaders came together to look at the plans and the promises they make the people of Uganda. They came to look at the resources that are allocated. And they looked at the challenges and hindrances. What is it that prevents us from achieving or delivering the services that we promised to deliver to the people of Uganda? And they also looked at the relationship between the individuals and the processes that all this happens. And one very important thing that nobody has talked about that retreat is that there was, at least for me, for the first time, I was able to listen to the presentation about the Development Plan 4, which is about to be launched, and the targets that must be achieved within that. It was a very interesting retreat. And one of the hindrances that was raised by the president, and he raised the statistics about the IGG, was the issue of corruption. Corruption, if the statistics given by IGG is anything that we should go by, and if you see what is happening in many institutions of government, then you can see that unless we wake up and really tighten our belts and fight it, because it has started crawling itself into areas which until hitherto nobody expected that Parliament could get involved to the levels of corruption like it is now. Perhaps my brother here would help us to understand when did this begin happening. The Honorable from Butambala, that members of Parliament can sit together and they distribute amongst themselves 160 billion. I don't know whether this may not be sub judice because it is already a case in court, but these are things that you read in the papers and you say, but at the time we were in Parliament, when did this happen? Because the constitutional framers delegated the authority to superintend the affairs of the economy into the hands of Parliament.
Honorable Dombo, just around what you're saying there, one is the deployment, but let me give you numbers that came out of the census. 50.5 of the population is between 0 and 17. 18 to 30 is 22. When you make the total, that is 73% of the population. That is 33 million Ugandans out of 45 that are underage. What plight do you know that these young people are going through as the NRM?
Many of these young people have been educated under NRM.
So we're talking about the plight. What do they go through that you're cognizant of what they're going through?
No, I wanted to begin there. That have been educated under NRM. They are using internet that has been enabled by the NRM. But secondly, they want jobs. The young people, when you talk about wealth creation, there may be few individuals who may be innovators, but they don't have capacity to even access credit in order for them to become involving in enterprise. First and foremost, they want to earn income. And who creates the income? It's the government. That one creates the environment for the young people. And when the money that should have gone for creation of opportunities for the young people, you are talking about the 1% budget that is spent by Parliament. I have seen their concerns. They shouldn't even. Actually, the concern about Parliament is the morality because they have delegated authority by the entire population. But when you look at the quantum of the corruption, it's not taking place in the Parliament. You go to the districts and find out what is happening at the level of the districts.
Okay.
Many young people pay money to get jobs, which they end up not getting. And they have gone to school so that they can be well off. When you look at all of us here, and you moved 40, 50 years ago, and you looked at what Honorable Tambala was in his youth time, when you look at my brother here, the doctor, perhaps I don't know, I wasn't there, but I know what I was 50 years ago when I was a young little boy. I was just a villager.
Okay.
But because of the opportunities that were available then, we were able to transform and transform. So the young people are asking, what is it that we must do? And that's what the president was saying. Let us fight corruption to ensure that we deliver service for the young people to get jobs and be well.
Dr. Ivan, let me come to you. When you looked at that speech by the president and you looked at these young people demonstrating yesterday, they're also deeming to go again on the streets on Thursday. The heavy deployment, Mambas on the street, says security to secure us. I don't know if the Mambas were there to secure them or the placards were weapons. What do you make of these incidents yesterday?
Yeah, not starting from yesterday, but when you analyze the flow of the president's address and speech, it all rotates on the economic issues. What is happening in Uganda and the way it is happening, including corruption, they are all anchored on the economic issues. Starting from his analysis, the historical background on how he came to power and how Uganda emerged the way it emerged before the independence and during independence and after independence and his time, you could see that he was trying to explain how the past, the present, can influence the future. The past, the present, and the future are interrelated. Now moving to his area, which is very much interested in the wealth creation. He focused mainly on the 3 C's, where we had traditional crops like coffee, cotton, and the other C was what? Copper. And he also mentioned the 3 T's. That was tea, tobacco, and
tourism.
And he's trying to emphasize that they should be done in a modern way, like all the 3 C's and even like the T's in areas of agriculture, where he emphasized very much on agriculture. But you need to know that a bigger percentage of Ugandans are involved in agriculture. Yes, it is known. Before independence and after independence, we are still in agriculture. To what extent has agriculture become dominant in an economy? It is dominant in employment. It is dominant in job, in exports. It is dominant in areas of provision of raw materials for so many things. So the dominance of agriculture, he emphasized a lot. But one thing is like this. How is it helping a bigger percentage of the population? How is agriculture creating more employment to the youth? That requires an area where you should bring in more technologies which are environmental friendly and even with cost efficiency techniques. And how can the Ugandans go into agriculture to make use of it, create employment, increase incomes, and overcome poverty? You have to use modern techniques, modern technology, and add value on those products, which majority of the Ugandans cannot manage. And the government has a role to play. If government has limited resources, but has a role to play, what can it do? It can use availability, it can use the available potentials from the private sector. And you need to know that in our vision 2024, 2040, and even in the 2030 sustainable development programs, Uganda is not emphasizing very well the public-private partnerships, where the government has a duty to deliver service, to do something for the population, and has no capacity in terms of resources, in terms of technology. It has to use the public-private partnership, where the potential private actors can do the work on behalf of the government, but of course on a profit. And at the end of the day...
Who are these private partners you're talking about?
The private partners, let me just explain. How Uganda moved to expanding the private sector while reducing slightly on the public sector. All those started under the structural adjustment programs when NRM had taken over power.
How have they performed? Because when you talk about agriculture, sir,
yes,
we talk about 68% involved directly.
Yes.
Indirectly, it's about 90. The same agriculture you're talking about only contributes 24% to the GDP.
To GDP.
Young people are not involved because agriculture, we're still using the hoe. The president was using bottles to show how irrigation is done. So when you talk about solar pumps that haven't shown up, what are you talking about that you want young people to do?
That's why I'm saying, if we cannot manage solar pumps, if we cannot manage irrigation, then it is the role of the government to help the wananchi to benefit from the solar and the irrigation facilities that can help the district. And the district cannot manage that. That's where you bring in the public-private partnership initiatives. And that's why I'm saying, do you know why public-private partnership initiatives are not known? We are not sensitizing people, even the government, we are not building the capacity on that. But before we go to that one, are we able to adopt or embrace public-private partnership? We have a PP unit in the Ministry of Finance, and it is helping people to know what public-private partnership is all about. And that's why I'm saying, an institution like UMI, you have programs on PP. That's why in fact, indirectly, I can respond to to Honorable Dombo. He wanted to say, how can an institution like UMI help in reducing corruption through its center? Technical capacity building, awareness. Do you know that some positions in MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies are occupied by individuals who have no technical capacity, and that's why they are making mistakes, and corrupt people take advantage over them. That's the role of UMI. That's one of those I have given you. So that one, UMI has a bigger role to play. And don't interfere, I want to continue, I want to explain very well on this. So I'm still on the president's initiative on agriculture. He is very right, because he is emphasizing the role of comparative advantage. A country should do better, or should concentrate on more where it can do better than others. We are better in agriculture. Land, rain, we are better. Nature, we are better. But how is government...
How much are we putting into agriculture?
That's where the budget allocation is denying agriculture sector the ability to do what it should have done.
What are the biggest challenges of the private sector?
The biggest challenges of the private sector comes from the policies, regulations.
Credit facilities.
Yes.
Government is crowding out private sectors in credit facilities. Domestic borrowing is the highest in the last 2 financial years. So you're talking about private partnerships. How are they supposed to happen? You're talking about very nice, very beautiful macroeconomics.
Yes.
How does that translate to a young person who is 17, 18?
A younger person will only benefit from the public-private partnership through the trickle-down effects. Has government moved in to emphasize and initiate public-private partnerships through which the youth can benefit through trickle-down effects? Public-private partnership, let me tell you, government has the duty to provide certain services, certain goods and services that they want to, mainly the basic needs, like education, health services, transport facilities, and even where possible, food. Because Uganda should be a welfare state, and the welfare state is a state where the minimum basic needs of life should be provided freely by the government. Are we doing that? Are we doing that?
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Let me come back to you. Let me bring in Chris. Chris, Parliament has been at the center of this. I have seen you on spaces, especially for about the last 3 months. Is Parliament a soft target right now, or is it the right target, especially in conversations of corruption?
I think it is a softer target, because Parliament is where popularity games are played. And we have bred a group of leaders who have known how to duck from responsibility and play to the gallery, wholesale. Ugandan political leaders, right from LOC1 up to where, are popularity game players. So that's why you see this, a lot of noise coming to Parliament. Honorable Doma just told you, if it is money you're following, 900 billion as opposed to 900 billion is more painful to Ugandans compared it to what IGG just said, 9 trillion lost every year. Just yesterday, IGG released corruption, what we lose in the judiciary, in the tax evasion, in billions. But it has not raised, it has not tickled the young people. Gen Zs are not being told. Gen Zs are told it's Parliament where there is corruption. So it becomes a soft target. But is it to say that Parliament does everything right? No. Like in other institutions, it grapples with the challenges. And the challenges must be addressed. And my take is that we lost a lot of things because we don't apply multidisciplinary approaches to resolving our issues. We think each issue is isolated and it should be dealt in isolation. If we talk about unemployment, President Museveni, if I may say, is the only consistent person on his approach on how to develop Uganda. As to whether the options he gives bear fruit is another story. He has talked on corruption, he has talked on what we need to do, but you can't be a lone voice. I was just chatting with my colleague and my former teacher. It is the president who said corruption is bad. You go to LOC3 in your sub-county. He will never talk the way the president talks. You go to your district chairman. where resources go. He will not talk against corruption like the president talks, like Honorable Chivubi talks. And then you expect us to be fighting corruption. And we're telling the Gen Zs, you go to parliament. Even when rightly so, the pain they are facing is at the local council. You tell them go to parliament. So it becomes something political. And when politics comes in, it takes different dimensions. It's very wrong for us now to, we like jumping on bandwagons. Indeed, we all know that the Ugandan population is largely young. And they have unique challenges to their generation. But they are not, these challenges are not new. We have been talking about why we need to improve our education system. We have talked, me as Chris have talked for the last 20 years that we have been theorizing our education, equipping our students with stories of Europe, which do not have any value on how they harness the environment. Then you say, I have a bachelor's in this. We have veterinary doctors in Uganda who cannot milk a cow. But farmers.
I want to go back to where you've gone to the
farmers are crying for veterinary doctors.
Could it be that these young people you're talking about are pinning Parliament because they're looking at the role of oversight of Parliament and questioning, especially even when you've talked about the districts?
If it is about the role of oversight of Parliament, Parliament does not do everything, perhaps to the satisfaction. But if you're genuine on critiquing Parliament, he will speak about reports he has written about corruption. He's here. He chairs a committee. Even in the cooperatives you are talking about, that has led to some members being taken to Luzira. They are not yet guilty until proven so. It is Parliament of Uganda that investigated. And he gave a report on the cooperatives. And he said the police take over. So why are you saying Parliament is doing nothing? By the way, the cooperative theft, he said, when did it begin? This thing was in the 10th Parliament. You know that. So you don't want to go to when did it begin. We shall make things very complicated. It is the 11th Parliament that looked into this matter, produced a report, and said, we have lost money. That report of Parliament is where action is being taken. So why are you saying Parliament is being oversight? Is it doing 100% right? I am not sure. He's here to tell you. But to say we want Parliament, it brings a lot of concerns. And when you make matters political, Honorable Chief will want to come to power because he's in Inu. He will get a point to cling on so that he also wins the public. Honorable Dombo will take a position and say, no, I am in power. I will not allow you to come. And the issues get lost. So we need to tell the Gen Zs, one, challenges are resolved in a very structured manner. Leadership is knowledge intensive. Leadership is character assessment. Leadership is a morality test. If they don't have these tools and we send them to the street, we are also not helping. Parties have let down the Gen Zs we are talking about. I am not sure there is a political party that has a deliberate program that is training youth leaders from village so that they can take over. But we are all using youth to achieve our ends as old people. Now we have jumped on the bandwagon. The youth are young, but as the old we are talking. The youth are young. What have you done before you became old? As Dr. Twin, as Obora, as Dombo. Why did you allow the situation to reach where it has reached? Now we want to appeal to them because we know we never gave them practical education. They went through our school system and got what do you have? I have a bachelor's in veterinary medicine. Take them to a farm, they run away from a cow udder. Yeah. I'm telling you, that's what happens. So what are we talking about? It is not their problem. Where were you? Where were we? So let's not mislead the Gen Zs. Let's tell them leadership is a challenge. And there is no country without challenges. Now, if we teach them the sense of entitlement, that me I want, tomorrow they will be the only people who will give them. So anarchy may not be a proper approach to resolving our challenges, but a dialogue. And there's a discussion. I was discussing again with him. At one point, Sarah is a human rights activist. Says every person has a right to fair hearing, isn't it? He's also a lawyer. Me, I'm not. President Museveni has been saying, don't give bail to corrupt people. Don't give bail to murderers. Sarah will say, no, due process.
Of course.
But when it comes to the corrupt, you declare Dombo corrupt, kill him.
Who has said so?
That's what you are teaching the Gen Zs to do.
No.
That someone is corrupt because you have said they are corrupt.
Chris,
Instead of saying if Nyangweso is corrupt, let us equip the police to really investigate and find out that he is corrupt. Let us equip the DPP. The DPP may be having lots of challenges. What have we done to the office of the DPP to ensure that they prosecute? We are abusing IGG. What have we done to support IGG? We are abusing the courts. What have we done to support courts? If we do not build these institutions deliberately, we are going to run in circles and lead to anarchy. And that's why I don't want to speak with the security. They have a higher advantage of intelligence. They do what they do based on their situation assessment. So I cannot say where were people deployed there. That's purely a security matter. But let us not jump on the bandwagon of Gen Zs to serve our selfish interests as old people who failed from the word go to nurture these people, to be productive, to nurture their talents. If I told you today, there are some people who know to go to Makerere, but they want to play football. Where are football pitches?
Thank you. Let me bring in Honorable Chivumbi. Honorable, yesterday I saw you on the floor of Parliament, and I also saw some of your colleagues questioning the deployment, especially around Mambas, around heavy deployment, demonstrations happening, and you made statements on the floor of Parliament. When you look at these demonstrations and look at where we're going as a country, are they valid?
First of all, I've listened to the discussion here with a bit. I listened to the passion of the professor, and he's a typical professor. He thinks you can pick a data byte and solve a problem. He came with the theory of public-private partnership. I think now, once you fix it in the equation, Uganda is reset. That's why I have a very big disagreement with a lot of fellows in the Ministry of Finance. And the people who are thinking about this economy, they think that you can fix this country by fixing an economy. The problem is bigger than that. Let me start with the president's speech. The president, in a home given to him by the people of Uganda, straight away offends the constitution and will let him go away with it. He says those who are going to demonstrate
Expect fire.
Expect fire. The constitution he vowed to protect very clearly in Article 20, 24, up to 29. I will even speak up to 43, where there are limitations. Says fundamental rights are inherent and not granted by the state. That's where we come from. That fundamental rights are inherent and not granted. And it puts the responsibility of all government agencies and persons to respect, uphold, and promote the enjoyment of rights. Therefore, the security forces, by the command of the Constitution, their first call is to ensure that the right to assemble, to demonstrate, is enjoyed. The exception is where you call a limitation. But for you, you pick the exception to be the rule, and the rule to be the exception. We went ahead. It is the subject of constitutional interpretation. I personally, having faced a lot of the challenges these young people faced as a youth activist, petitioned the Constitutional Court on the powers of police to prohibit a demonstration, an assembly, or a gathering. The Constitutional Court, in my petition, Mwanga Chivumbi versus the Attorney General, okay, which was not even appealed at the Supreme Court, no one even dared to appeal, ruled critically, police do not enjoy the powers to prohibit a gathering. Yeah. They can only regulate. Then you come from a paradigm where rights are granted. Now, when the president of the Republic of Uganda, sitting in a home we pay for, offends a constitution in so provocative a manner, and you say, oh, he has spoken, you have an issue. Then, together with civil society, Honorable Dombo can bear me witness. When I just joined Parliament, I found a huge debate about the Public Order Management Act. And he was a senior legislator, we made a case to uphold that ruling. Even the sections that infringed that ruling, the civil society and myself went back to the court. Yeah. And we backed the Public Order Management Act as an constitutional document. Therefore, one of the cardinal principles of the 4-5 challenges, which these intellectuals don't fix, one of them is the obvious one. The biggest challenge to security in all African countries, by the way, today, are not armed people. It is how do you plan and deal with the new population back, these young people. They pose the biggest challenge. We are so lucky that these Arab countries have sorted out their economies and they are relieving you. I looked at the audit report that gave me a figure of 140,000 Ugandans in the year under audit review.
In the Middle
were
East.
able to go to Middle East. The auditor, then they said, because I'm investigating whether the monies came in for job placement, I won't go to the detail. Therefore, because they were now distributing, they are saying there are 46,000 in one single year. They don't come to UMI.
Which people?
The young people.
The young people are not coming to you for training. They are running. No, they are running. How many have your numbers of UMI? By the way, I've run your numbers. I know. I was there to audit you. I've run your numbers. I have run your numbers and I know them. You cannot qualitatively influence what Ugandans are dealing with, not through UMI.
Moderate.
No.
Let him finish.
You've had your day. So the biggest challenge is how to deal, and it poses existential threat. He has put it. Young people want to have jobs, to have income, to lead a happy life. That's there. They want to exercise their potential. You are limiting them through technology, Facebook, and limiting their chances. The second biggest challenge you face is what the president touched, by the way, is climate change. If you are still having your 70% of the population stuck in agriculture, then you need to protect the environment. That's how critical it is. Then the second biggest issue you have in Africa is corruption. Corruption erodes away efficiency of service delivery and creates a deficiency. Then the fourth one is democratic deficit, which I tackled at first place, that where democracy is, rights are inhibited, and you think you are going to use gunpowder, men, boots, and power to quell dissatisfaction, you are just joking. And actually, for me, it demonstrated the level of fear. Because for the first time, the population was speaking the same. The demonstrators were helping the president. The president said, hey, you want to help me? I don't need you. I'll bring forces. I'll bring your enemies, because he brought, and I spoke about it, he brought assets that are preserve of war. You bring a Mamba, you bring a what? That is going to war. He did not bring anti-riot, by the way, as we know it. The assets brought on the street. And Dombo says, oh, we demonstrated the capacity.
And those vehicles for snipers.
And Dombo was just saying,
Capacity against citizens.
now, against who is the
An
enemy
armed
here?
citizen.
You see, these weapons, this capacity we have acquired and capabilities have sovereign protection when our sovereignty is under question. But you cannot afford to use them internally to query a democratic dissent. That's it. And for the professor, they think you can fix PP. These are the critical issues that the population faces and deals with. Now, let me turn to corruption. We must define corruption in its broadest sense and give it a broad meaning. Why did the rain start beating us? It is Raila who asked. Eh? Yes, forget about Owichitiba. Don't divert me. I clarified about Owichitiba. When did the rain start beating us? You know, when you start to lose a role model leader, you set a country to levels you cannot manage. The day the president began to come to that parliament, and Dombo, you were there, and you were lining up somewhere for 5 million to amend the constitution, to accord the president, because it's also there because of corruption. Otherwise, if he did not give money to the likes of, I don't know why Dombo, I don't want to allege because I don't have a list of those people. If he did not give money, okay, to parliament then to amend the constitution, today we would have had 2 other presidents, because we are now 20 years since that happened. 2 other presidents. And do you know the relief the country would have gone by a mere change, even if it was NRM, from one president to another set of leaders, another set of friends, another set of capabilities. Because when I come in, the first people I pick on are the people I know.
Which is corruption.
No, it's not corruption.
No,
it's not corruption.
you must build a team.
You must build a team. And that means replacing those I don't know. And that itself sets in motion a different kind of emotion and feeling in the country. You've been denied that. We had a second go. Dombo was there. There was called the age limit. There was Article 110. You had left, I think, by that time.
I had left.
You had Article 110. If a president of Uganda can have a dialogue with members of parliament on how to transact, pass for me this amendment, I'll give you this. And you are a head of state. You sit with your caucus and you have a conversation how much you should procure them.
He even gave them Chuan over 7 term.
And how much you should procure them. And you are head of state. 2, what example do you set? If you, on this panel, just you, you invited your wife, your brother, your uncle, your muko, and said they are panelists to discuss, how many Ugandans will listen to you? Now, when a president gets the moral courage to say, now my wife can be minister, my son is the CDF, my brother, someone is government, cabinet, members of this government, as if he's government himself. People go to Salim Saleh as if he has any constitutional position in Uganda. All of you, all these agencies, they head to Namunkekera, or to follow him to Gulu. Under which arrangement? So if you are going to tackle, let's go all the way and ask those broad questions. If you are speaking about parliament, how did you come to have the leadership that you have of parliament? Domboy was there. How comes today I'm one of the senior legislators? What has happened in your constituencies? Some of you are being defeated in party primaries, undermined by state apparatus. Today you can do Katebe at a secretariat. But it's the system. Actually, the opposition did not defeat you. So how did you come losing all these senior leaders? By the way, Parliament is a house of younger people. He can go and Google for you. Parliament is the house of very highly educated people. When you look on the average, The minimum average education is a bachelor.
Then why are you talking about against UMI that we can?
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no,
Lastly, Honorable.
So, so therefore, my bone of contention, the take of the youth. The youth are saying they may be misdirected, but at least they forced a conversation. They forced a conversation on corruption. Are they making the right targets? My answer is no. But the most important thing is for them to be able to call that even today at UBC, the whole night we have a professor, we have a director, we have him, we have a doctor, we are discussing this issue. That's a credit that goes to them. And they've done so well. It doesn't matter the numbers that turned up. The numbers could do, the numbers in quality struggles are not an issue. You can generate them over time. They only need to persist in doing what they do, and the cost is a little higher. Now, you cannot have a prison where you took people who are corrupt. It is in the same prison where you have also taken those who have demonstrated against corruption.
But moderator,
No,
you have denied us. This one has taken, this honorable has taken too much time.
But Professor, you also had time.
Before we take that break, go to our X platform. Let us know what you think. Go to the number 0709 60 25 92. That's our WhatsApp number. Drop your text by WhatsApp
No, it's not
or
corruption.
text there and let us know what you think. Let's come back after this break.
Juko.
Yo.
Wachikuwa. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Uganda, haven't you heard of the Parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. But what you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that.
Okay.
The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Coming soon on UBC.
Welcome to Inside Broadcasting.
Sharing with you the process behind what you see on the screens.
My name is Lorene Masika Kazimoto.
Step behind the scenes and witness the magic that brings your daily broadcasts to life.
That's why I come out openly to actually tell you that I'm an investigative journalist. That even when you see me here, I'm actually investigating you guys. So you should be aware about that.
Experience the hustle, the heart, and the human stories of our on and off-air staff.
I see my phone ringing and I'm like, ooh, which number is this? I hear the president on the other line.
The president of the Republic of Uganda.
Of Uganda, yes.
Be inspired, amazed, and part of the journey that powers Uganda's most captivating TV and radio moments.
Because good broadcast comes down to an individual. They should be artistic.
This is Inside Broadcasting.
Inside Broadcasting.
Inside Broadcasting with Mark Wadula.
Coming soon on UBC.
5 trillion.
So does that mean corruption?
The conversation has continued even when we're off air. My name is Timothy Nyangweso, and this is the last leg of Behind the Headlines. I'm joined by Dr. Sarah Birete, and the one that's still conversing, Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi. I'm joined by also Chris Obore, Dr. Ivan, and finally Honorable Dombo. We're discussing everything around the President's address, but specifically 2 areas. One of the 4 areas he mentioned, wealth creation, corruption, wetlands, and finally the demonstrations that he spoke about there. We're looking at all that and discussing it in its nitty-gritties, crossing the T's and dotting the I's there. But you can be part of the show. Get the number 0709 60 25 92. That's our WhatsApp line. Drop your comment there. A lot of messages are coming through. We'll read them towards the end there. Let's get into the conversation here. Dr. Sarr, one of the things that really was amazing, especially with the charges that were slapped on these young people, the number 60 going north of 70 there, was common nuisance, idle and disorderly. Knowing that I saw a tweet by the president in 2019 where he said everyone who was arrested under that should be released. Is this legal? Are these charges? Because the charge sheet, even when the lawyers were there, were saying these charge sheets are not even making sense. Makes sense for us on the legal element of common nuisance, idle and disorderly.
Well, the Constitutional Court in 2022 nullified the offense of common nuisance and idle and disorderly in a petition by one attorney. All the 5 judges unanimously declared these charges unconstitutional for contradicting several provisions of the Constitution in the Bill of Rights from Article 20 to 43. So when I saw, first of all, I don't know who drafted those charges. Maybe they have no lawyers on the team. I don't know how the state attorneys in the DPP chambers could sanction such charges that have been struck off the law books in Uganda. Then, of course, the caliber of a magistrate that would entertain such charges that no longer exist. And you go ahead to remand people. I hope the arrested protesters, when they come, they should sue these people for damages. Because what kind of knowledge do they have that they cannot comprehend a simple decision of a constitutional court nullifying or striking off offenses in the penal code under at section 168, I think, clause AC and something. Like, how can they be ignorant of their own institution's decision? And maybe also the Chief Justice needs to maybe relieve such just magistrates of their duties, because they are a disaster to the people. They cannot administer justice with such levels of ignorance. But away from that, when you look at the demonstrations, the Constitution requires demonstrators to be peaceful. These demonstrators were extremely peaceful. Of course, usually demonstrators are peaceful. The disruption comes in only when the brutality comes from state institutions through tear gas. Sometimes we have had a generation of Chivoko squad in police, people emerging from CPS under the leadership of IGP Kareki Hura with sticks, beating people, something very illegal and contrary to the laws of Uganda. So usually the so-called violence comes after the confrontation with state agencies. But in yesterday's case, the youth, very smartly dressed, very peacefully marching, were arrested. A few of them were arrested in a brutal manner. We have been sharing about 5 pictures of mostly officers in plain clothes that brutalized the people, pulling them, squeezing, I think for some few young men, their private parts, the usual inhuman treatment by some of the security officers on the streets. But the protest was largely peaceful. to the extent that there is no charge that can stand the test of time against a peaceful protester. They are just wasting time, arresting people illegally as people exercise their constitutional right. We have had a culture of this abuse under NRM for now close to 29 years. Because the Constitution will make 29 years on 8th October. We have not had full enjoyment of Article 29 of the Constitution, save for freedom of religion. The rest of the freedoms, association, speech, conscience, is always trampled on by state agencies under this regime. It's very unfortunate and shameful, and it's high time they checked their conduct.
Doctor, before I get to, yes.
I don't want to miss the point on the environment. I know to come to Doctor. I want us, at least even in our differences, to generate areas of consensus. And Honorable Kivumbi has alluded to it, climate change. I want to give a practical example in the villages. And it will also tie to why corruption is very complex to fight in Uganda. NEMA says there's not a ecological environment. But I've had local leaders telling people, you go and grow your rice. Elected leaders in local councils. I can tell you, Nyangweso, the Gen Zs must be given more knowledge like I was talking about, to equip them for challenges now and even tomorrow. Because worse will come tomorrow when they are now in our age. If we don't retool them to be knowledge intensive and creative enough. I want you to go back in Nyangweso and ask in your rural area where you come from and see whether there is any land for community as a community center. Just for a community, children to go and play. God, everyone is splitting. Communities are that selfish that common good is no longer an issue. Go to your village. You will not find any. That's a crisis. Just go to wherever you stay in Kampala, or especially the environments. Apart from those in Nakasero, who are lucky enough, Kololo, Bugolobi, where their waste has a treatment plant. A majority of the guys you see are driving V8s are living with a cesspool with poop in their compounds. That's not urban development.
Yeah, there's poop in Uvera.
Not even those with gated homes. Where is the poo-poo? Septic tank. In modern cities, that thing is supposed to be somewhere treated. But you will not find land in Nigeria where you can put a waste treatment plant. You can't find it in Mukono. You can't find it in Chireka. This is a danger we are seeing. But we are all intellectuals driving to our gates, thinking about today and tomorrow, not knowing that we are actually creating more problems. When it tells you that go and study in my urban company, these are some of the issues. In a modern city, I'm sure Honorable Dombos has a septic tank in his home. His poo-poo is in his compound. Only that he has decided to call on the site something and put a slab on top. That's not how cities are managed. But should you want to change that, where will you put a waste treatment plant in Nigeria? In Itinda? Where? I'm telling you, in the villages it is worse. Wetlands have gone, and there is nothing being left for community to even say, I'm leaving my home, kids go and play.
In Itinda, it is in Minister's Village.
Only?
Yes.
And it had been an elite planned, I think private planned, and who put...
Go to Chanja. Go away. Nothing. Okay. And we are leaders. That is another crisis.
And I want us, even in this hour, to be able to discuss wetlands before we leave. But Dr.
But on wetlands, factor in NFA.
The forest cover.
Yeah, NFA in my constituency. I've been calling NFA a terrorist organization.
A terrorist organization?
A terrorist organization.
They destroyed Mavira.
NFA has been allocating standing forests to private tree planters.
Meaning
and
they cut down trees?
They cut down a forest. I have now one rich man who owns over now about 5 square miles of cartoons, and is protected by NFA. They chase away this wananchi, okay? And the guys really live, and then they give away to rich people. In the area where I come from.
Is that a PPP?
Is that the PPP, Professor?
That is a PPP. It's a PPP. Now, if we agree, as it says, as a country, we can build consensus on the question of climate change. And say, as a country, I can say this the only time when we met the president as a defense committee, okay, and asked HMP to say something, I told the president, please, we need executive leadership on the question of climate change. Executive leadership. And he has issued pronouncements, cows, what?
But what is the action?
He's been, do you know why he's been ignored? I can tell you something. The biggest tree planters are leaders.
Agreed.
The biggest people who have apportioned forest land are not ordinary people. Are leaders in this country, members of parliament, cabinet ministers. I know all of them. High office in the Ministry of Finance, high office in the Ministry. These are the people who have descended. Not this one.
But Anyango, I wanted to seek clarification because I was a chairperson of Natural Resources Committee.
Yes.
And this was the policy of government. That Wananchi had gone and encroached in forests, and they were cultivating forests, and government did not have funds directly to begin planting trees. And they decided to partner with private people. So a forest planted by government, or a forest planted by private person, or a forest that has grown naturally. What is it that we're interested in? These local Wananchi being in the forest and planting tobacco and whatever they were cultivating? No. Or we can partner with private people. All the forests in the European countries that you go and move, they are not natural.
No, they are. No, okay. Let's sort out this issue of environment. Mr. Dombo, there are three categories of destruction of a forest. There is where you find a standing forest. There is where you find a degraded forest. Where you find a forest has been totally degraded, but the ingredients to regenerate are still there. There is also an area where a forest has been completely destroyed, it can't degenerate. That's the area we said the public could go in and plant trees. Now, the area that can all degenerate, everybody was supposed to live, and the natural forest comes up. Now, the corruption of NFA was that it has been giving away all those areas. And that's why the president was being misled the other day.
Why don't we say...
The president was being misled by those people in his press conference to show that Mabira has degenerated. The Mabira that is degenerated is a cryptus.
Mabira has disappeared.
He has disappeared. He was being told a lie.
Before you hang NFA,
yes.
Why don't you say that the corruption of the political leaders? Because you may not know the challenges of NFA.
But you put an agency to protect, and gave it to police and army.
To what extent do you allow that agency to operate according to this mandate?
No, it's there. It's there. I've been fighting NFA to please. I'm the only natural protector. I've been fighting NFA.
Okay.
So, and they were telling the president lies there. Let the president do an helicopter drive around Mabira and say a natural Mabira that has degenerated. I bet him, I give him 2 million shillings. I'm a poor man. If you fancy the press 2 million, let's take an helicopter flight over Mabira. And if I say natural Mabira that has degenerated, they told him a lie.
Give me to hold the money here.
Okay. 2 million.
Grace and Honorable Chivumbi, let me bring in Honorable Dombo. You, as a former chairman of Natural Resources, I was looking at the statistics, especially from NEMA. In the 90s, it was about 30,000 kilometers of wetland. By early 2000, it was 22,500 kilometers of wetland. Currently, we're losing 5,000 hectares annually in wetlands. But also, when you look at the people who are being pushed out of these wetlands, are the Wananchi. And there is a street saying, money is the only one that determines whether it's a wetland or not. Why is the law used selectively in these wetlands or in the environment of our country?
But Nyangweso, when you go to the traditional times, there are things that are given. There is nobody who ever sold land and planted a landmark within the wetland.
But now they are saying
that was a given. Even when somebody showed the boundaries of their land, they did so up to the boundaries of the wetland. That's why the president was asking. He said that, okay, if NEMA did not prevent people from occupying the wetlands, why didn't people use their common sense? Because this is a wetland, you see it. And the wetland has the uses that the president mentioned. But one of the challenges that we face as government is that we went through a very long period of poor regulation or no regulation at all.
Yeah.
And people learned the bad practices, and they also, after learning the bad practices, they had no alternative sources of income, for instance, in other places like Busoga and Bukedi. When the planting of paddy rice became prevalent and people started seeing the wetlands or the swamps being more productive than the higher land because of climate change, which was an effect of degradation, progressively people encroached more and more on the wetlands, and this became a very bad habit. To the extent that many people now thought they have a right to access the wetlands. And this was complicated by that same law which was passed in the Constitution, where they said land belongs to the people, and there are many private landlords in whose lands, which is even titled the wetlands, are. And now the president has been arguing that when you look at the law, the wetlands don't belong to you as an individual, because they help us to sieve the water that we depend on. They reduce the flow of water so that water seeps down in order to...
Honorable Dombo, as you continue, my burden is, why is it always only the head of state to bring this knowledge? And yet we know anywhere else there are layers of government. There's government at the center, there's a regional government, there's a local government. Why is this message not taken by the local governments? Because the ordinary person will not listen to the president, will listen to the LOC3 they elected. The LOC3 is telling them, you go and grow your rice.
No, but they don't.
The LOC5 is telling him otherwise. There's a crisis in leadership.
There are some areas that have challenges. This is not... I need to declare my interest here, because the whole of Butaleja is a swamp. Because all the water that runs from Mountain Elgon were in the water shadow. That actually, if you talk to people getting out of the swamps, you will indirectly be saying that the whole of Butaleja should do.
But there is sustainable use
should
of
not.
wetlands.
Now that's the issue that we are discussing with the president and saying that are there alternative uses, the sustainable use of the swamps, where people can do fish farming, because they can be assisted, but all that one will require big government support. But this is just because of corruption, to answer your question. Your question goes back to corruption. Corruption is not this the eating of money or using of money in a corruptible manner, but people have been taking decisions. Go to the Ministry of Land and see who has been issuing titles and titling the most of the swamps around Uganda. No, you have talked about the local government leaders. Talk about NEMA. When was NEMA created? One of the biggest problems I see, you go to Eastern Uganda or anywhere where near a river, and you see the color of the water. When I was a young boy, like the president said, in Manafa, that river Manafa, you'd just branch apart from the worms that were in the water, but the water was clear. People could go and scoop water, draw water, and people could go and take that water and boil it and take it, or others would take it directly the way it was. Right now, all the rivers in Uganda, the water is brown. Why? because it is silted and it is taking and washing away all the soils. So why has NEMA not been enforcing its mandate, irrespective of people occupying positions and earning a salary in those positions? We have had about 5 executive directors of NEMA ever since NEMA was created.
With the PhDs.
And they have not been doing their work.
I'll give you an example. In Ikumi, which I know, to save NEMA, in Ikumi, you know, Professor, my thesis was on NEMA policy and protection of wetlands. So I did a bit of research on that area. In Ikumi, where then the late Dr. Tomo Kuru came from, he tried to lead by an example. One of the leaders of Kumi, once NEMA leaves, they go to a meeting with the NEMA because NEMA works through structures.
Okay.
So they go to a district. Chris, after a meeting, the chairman tells people, you go to and grow your rice.
Okay.
So
Chris,
the issue becomes political.
Let me bring in Doctor. Doctor, let's now find solutions. Corruption, Chris has spoken about 9.7 trillion shillings, IGG, a lot of money going as far as the local government. What are the solutions academia can bring to this?
Solutions?
Yes.
The solutions may not necessarily be academic. First of all, I have said corruption is multidimensional. But we tend to use some laws which seem to be one size fits all. That requires changes in the laws against corruption so that loopholes in the corruption system can be closed. Secondly, if you see the number of anti-corruption agencies, they seem to be many. We have Inspector General of Government, we have the Auditor General's Office, we have State House Anti-Corruption Unit, and there's so many. There are many, and they tend to be conflicting, and there are gaps. Can't they reduce some of them and empower, build the capacity, increase the capacity, and remain with 1 or 2? Because of the conflicting mandates, there are mandates which are conflicting. So you have to visit that. Secondly, we have so many MDAs in Uganda, ministries, departments, and authorities. Yet, in the 1986, when we decided of reducing the parastatals, we are now moving back. In fact, the parastatals and the ministries exceed the number of what we should have, what used to be there. So why can't we merge? And you see, we are, like just recently, we were trying to merge, but through corruption, some people stopped the merging of some ministries. And without reducing the number of ministries, departments and agencies in Uganda, with our limited resource capacity, corruption will remain. Above all, people who are working in the ministries, they are having a big divergence in incomes, the salaries, big inequalities in salaries. And that is a very cause of corruption, where someone is earning 100,000 per month, a cleaner, someone is earning 40 million per month. Why can't someone also want to be like another one? So there are things which pull people into that system. Secondly, I go to the parliament. Why do we have a big parliament? In fact, in Uganda, we adopted decentralization to bring services nearer to the community, and decentralization has 3. There is political decentralization, fiscal decentralization, administrative decentralization. But we have noted that there is political decentralization has overgrown at the expense of fiscal decentralization and administrative decentralization. Yet, fiscal decentralization and administrative decentralization are the key that can provide efficient services and even development of the districts. They are the ones. So how do you emphasize growing of many districts, many constituencies? That is political decentralization, which is growing faster at the expense of fiscal decentralization and administrative decentralization. So do you want people at the local levels to keep on seeing members of parliament and clap for them when they are eating air? Do you want people at the district to keep on paying taxes to be paid to the parliamentarians. In fact, what are the parliamentarians contributing to the districts? You have only one referral hospital in the whole entire region like Kabale. In fact, that's why the public service is suggesting what you call regional transformation, something like that. We have regional service commission. You have only one service commission, which represents around 5 districts, which can address all problems of the districts. It is easier for the president to monitor that regional service commission. It is easier to capitalize or enhance that region, and it is very simple.
Doctor,
meaning that...
Doctor,
yes.
you have said corruption is multidimensional.
Why don't you say you want a regional government?
No, I'm not saying. I don't want the so many Chivumbi. No, in Kabale. I want only one.
Doctor,
I want only one.
Yes. You're saying that that it's multidimensional, but you seem to be giving one shoe to fit all the corruption that is there.
What I'm giving is one of the examples among the many. What I'm giving is one example among the many. First, reduce the political section. Because if, for example, we have only 2 MPs in the Kabale district, I come from Kabale, we wouldn't be suffering the way we are suffering, I'm telling you. And that is, parties you are competing, every party wants to grow over, so that you grow the party, but you forget the people. But at the end of the day, you want money from the poor people through taxation. Where do they get the people? Where do they get the money? People are very poor. And I would, let me now move to your area of demonstration. We need to know what are the triggers of demonstrations. The youth. First, number 1, unemployment. They should know why the demonstrations are emerging. Unemployment, poverty, and high cost of living. And that should be the role of the districts and other ministries, departments and agencies. You need to know that the government should learn how to reduce the number of ministries and increase the financial support, financial capacity like that. I have to go to Chivumbi before my time ends. Wait, give me 1 minute. You need to know that education is the best equalizer. Education is the best equalizer. You are in parliament because of the education. They set their minimum standards. Had you not achieved those minimum standards, you wouldn't be there. The education you want should be practical. And you and I were doing practical education. Again, the PPs, you are talking about the environment. The PPs which helped the government of Uganda to construct the Entebbe Express without affecting the swamp, they were the PPs. The toll roads, the collection, they are the PPs. If they had put there a pure Ugandan, you'd be eating that money. You need more capacity and knowledge about the PPs in Parliament. Today, Monday, Tuesday, we were in a PP awareness training, and your members of Parliament were there. They will let you know. It's high time you sensitize the people about PPs, which can help the government of Uganda to overcome.
Do you have an audit report on PPs?
Yes, you have it.
They have it.
What would explain, I agree that we put a money at the local center. Because we agree in public policy dynamics that every option you bring generates another policy problem.
That is it.
Have we anticipated the likely problems from the options we are giving? Given this context, he comes from Tororo. Just the other day, I was reading that poor district that is poverty returned 5.5 billion. They couldn't consume.
Yeah.
Gulu returned 1.6 billion. Hoima refused to disburse Mioga money. It is there. The money is there. What explains this? So there is more we need to discuss. It's not the absence of money. There is something to do with us as a people.
There is a problem in that.
Chris, let me come to you. When you interact with young people, you have the opportunity to have been both a journalist but now also a director of communications. When you look at the undercurrents of these demonstrations, when you look at, double click to see what is happening with these young people, and you saw these demonstrations, what are these undercurrents and how can we solve them?
Yeah, I do appreciate the plight of the young people. Like I told you first, they were shortchanged by the education given, the curriculum given. Good enough, government is revising that curriculum, it's now a new curriculum. the outputs of this new curriculum should be expected in the next 10 years. It's not something you want next month. Because since we have been told how Napoleon was a great orator, now Napoleon cannot help me get food. They told me combine harvesters in Saskatchewan. I don't know where Saskatchewan is. This is a geography we're taught. Instead of teaching me how to preserve Mabera forest, they're teaching me about Rhineland. This is a problem we got. We cannot run away from it. And leadership took long to see this. But now there's something happening. The bigger challenge even is the land question. Before I talk about the corruption, the land, the stability of Uganda for over time, even with our political popularity players, the land has been sustaining Uganda with or without politicians. Now climate change has come to disrupt that, and the population growth. There's no land in rural areas. And the number of children in rural areas anywhere is worrying. That you cannot say in the next 20 years that there will be stability in the villages. It will not be there. And that's why I told you, government is not making a deliberate effort to make sure that at least let there be a community center. For these young children to even go and kick a ball, whatever they want. Everything is split. It's like there are no local governments to plan for this. And yet we have community development officers at every sub-county level. We have them. Nobody's talking about it. And we elect people who I don't know why we elect them. Even when you tell them, they don't seem to see it. I even tell them, please, can we buy at least 4 acres in every village and leave it as community land? So that you can develop it. Soon, I bet you will even have nowhere to put your polling stations. Because everywhere. So the young people are now affected because of comparative needs. They see Sarah glittering. I'm also this. I'm also a graduate. Why her? So some of them are analytical. Others are emotive. I also want. They forget, even when you are all given the same platform, there are other talents that determine the quality of life you will lead. But we are also not teaching them, we are just telling them, Dombo is the problem. Dombo is the problem. I began from there. No, let's also tell them that the opportunities are here. They can be harnessed this way. The challenge is here. It can be addressed this way. If we go by what we are saying now, like rational ignorance, where the majority is, we all go. There will be no leadership. Leadership tends to say, no, this is this, but I believe in this. We lack. So the young men could end up in political games they are less aware of.
Let me Google that one and I see rational ignorance.
Yes.
Honorable Chivumbi.
Yes.
Yes. As he Googles rational ignorance.
Yes. Honorable Chivumbi, let me come to you.
You know the majority is wrong, but you choose to be with them.
Chris, let's bring the conversation here. Honorable Chivumbi, these young people, this conversation has been on Spaces for a while. They met police on the 17th of July. They've gone on to be able to voice. They even had to get on to tell people what to do. Don't carry stones, be peaceful, do all these things. When you look at these protests and you look at the wave from West Africa, are we cognizant of what is coming to us as a country? And can demonstrations make change?
Let my professor bit benefit.
Yeah, I already said it.
Yes. He touched about ministries today. And those of you in Chankwans, government should have a unit cost. Okay?
That was one of the resolutions in Chankwanzi.
It's a point I've been making over the years, is that you cannot, even at home, you know the cost of electricity, of water, of a matchbox, a loaf of bread, things you do.
Yeah.
And they can't vary every year. Every agency. Even as who are Hajis, you can't have it in different prices, in different homes. Okay? So, you cannot afford, sorry, the rules don't permit me to say anything, but if it's an audit report, if in the audit I can, but not on the report, you cannot be making a road, bitumen grade 1, in Congo for 5 billion per kilometer. 5 billion per kilometer. So can you have a unit cost? The second thing you need to investigate are mushrooming called projects in government agencies.
Called what?
Government projects, so-called projects. And I know you never tackled this area. I audit a ministry, and I realize that 2/3 of its budget are projects. Now, when you go to project implementation, that's where you find massive corruption. A project that is supposed to last 3 years, started in 2017, has not taken off. It overlaps a loan period, and it has not taken off. Money eaten. You have 14 trillion of borrowed money and dispatched.
Let me give you information.
And dispatched. All those, that money is in projects.
Just a second, Honorable Dom.
Okay. No, we can give.
You know, when we were in Chankwanzi, the Secretary of the Treasury did make a presentation about the non-performing loans. And he went loan by loan and why. And it was very interesting to note that many loans stop at procurement level. Once the procurement of certain either assets or signing the agreement is conducted, then you find people disinterested. But the bigger question would be, in such a situation, has Parliament, why were the constitutional makers, why did the constitutional makers enjoin Parliament in the process of determining the loans? I remember when I was in Parliament, there is a time when they brought a loan about youth livelihood something to be implemented by the Minister of Finance. And they brought it towards the end of the financial year, and they put a condition saying, if we don't pass the loan, the budget is not going to be funded. We refused to approve the loan. The loan was restructured and was shifted from Minister of Finance to the Minister of Gender. You remember very well. Yes. It was a big spirited fight. So why has Parliament, right now, you hear very disgusting stories of members of Parliament, instead of discussing the details of loans, they ask for their cuts. They don't even go into the details. So there is a lot that is happening, and we must.
Can I even give you more? I discover, the Auditor General actually discover, because if I say I discover, I delve into an area where I'm not permitted. The Auditor General discovers loans passed without a concept note. Money borrowed without a concept note.
So how that is, how could it Parliament?
That's why in some of my committees I was inviting even the chairpersons of committees to ask them, how did this loan pass through Parliament? How did you clear it? Without a concept note, without a BOQ. You use design and build. Can you believe you borrow money on a design and build concept? Now, all these things, we are sticking with a lots of money. And the moment, and because of the time lag you have no time to audit projects. And that's where lots of money are. I've looked at projects that I have stalled for 10 years, 15 years. So all of them in villages for water pumping, for irrigation, for everything. Health, government procures, for example. Government procures ICU beds, knowing the ceilings in hospitals cannot sustain the appendants. And you spend lots of money. They're all packed in boxes in hospitals, all referrals, hospitals. Now, this kind of wastage, do you know why? Because the procurement is juicy. The commission on procurement is so, the cut on procurement.
Yes. In Katakwi, they say the Valley Dam would cost 150 million. Moses Biarohanga went and desilted the Valley Dam at 15 or 20 million.
Okay.
So, the last thing is to be who we are. Let us be a constitutional order. Let us have a belief in constitutionalism. Let rights be rights. Let people be heard, no matter how uncomfortable with what they are going to say. If young people are saying they want to demonstrate, tell them Kampala Road is not good, okay? But take Acacia Road. Don't come to Parliament
on a Sunday.
Whether that can be debatable. Because the demonstration has to also have a meaning. Yes, it has to have a meaning. It's not in vain. The people want to demonstrate where there are people, they are seen. That's what it means. Because the right to participate and influence government is a fundamental right. Therefore, let's say people want to demonstrate. You can't go to Tax Park, okay? But you can gazette for you a road. March from this side of the road to the other. You need less capacity. Do you know the cost that was incurred on Thursday? The last time I looked at a riot, the cost of each riot was 2 billion. Managing a riot, that was when I was in defense. 2 billion, they had budgeted 40 billion, they had planned for 20 riots in a given year. So 40 billion was allocated for a budget to manage a riot. I don't know what this one costed. It would have costed around 4 to 5 billion. Now, all that money can be saved if you manage the road and tell them you will march from Makerere, we'll gazette for you, pass to Rugogo, go to Nambole, there is a free speech, government will put for you public speakers, you will spend a day there. It's okay. Can't that be cheaper?
Ruto tried and
would you want to benchmark with Kenya and find out what?
Okay, no.
Gentlemen,
Kenya was benchmarked. You see, Kenya, the demonstrations in Kenya have a slight difference with the demonstrations in Uganda. Because you see, that's why I looked at the state one, tried to make the movement of young people partisan by descending on NUP, tried to paint it a NUP affair. The next thing normal security forces do is to turn a genuine peaceful demonstration easily into a riot by firing tear gas to justify why they should use violence. So at the end of the day, it's all about a non-belief in a constitutional order. Giving people rights, refusing people to say things who are not comfortable to be said. Lastly, even in Parliament, lastly, even where Parliament now, Bore, here you are, you and us, all these small things we can solve internally that give us a bad name, let's talk about them. Should you commissioners? Should you what? Should you what? You leave things hanging for which other people now hinge on to hang you. He was a commissioner of Parliament.
Honorable Chivumbi, let me bring in Dr. Sarah because of our time is fast spent. Doctor, this corruption that everyone is calling a cancer, that all of us are trying to see how to manage this elephant from whichever side, is it solvable?
Well, if there is a commitment to sort of corruption, it is solvable. Uganda is at a point in chess game that is defined as zung-zwang. This is a situation where in chess a player is forced to make a move that will weaken the player's position. And in a chess game, you can't make a pass. If it's your turn to play, you must play. With the changing demographics, the NRM finds themselves in this zung-zwang position
Chinese
when it comes to corruption. No, it's a language in chess. When it comes to corruption, they have to fight corruption. For some time, they've been, romancing corruption, selective application of the law, charging a few people that they've disagreed with, others they forgive. All those are irregularities. And like Honorable Mwanga Chuvumbi demonstrated, even the leadership has not read the moral compass well on corruption. And that has caused us a pandemic that we are in today. The same applies to Parliament. When Parliament stifles debate, I was watching yesterday, many MPs for quite some time have been struggling to have a debate on the floor of the House. Parliament is a temple of democracy. If you stifle debate in Parliament, what is the intention? Or what impression are you creating?
Or where else would it be?
Or where else should it be? When people are petitioning or demonstrating against Parliament, you would expect that the leadership of Parliament will wait for the representatives of the demonstrators on the steps of Parliament, receive a petition, go and discuss it as people's representatives and give the country an answer through their deliberations. But the same Parliament now is full of barricades, mambas, tankers. Are you still a people's house? The motion, the people who are trying to seek to debate, I think today they were missing one signature. So where will you run when that one signature is got? Now that you've been running from debate, where will you run to if they get this one signature?
If there is no forgery one.
They will start now. They will start disqualifying signatures. You know, Parliament has put itself in a very shabby position.
5 will withdraw.
Through they will start playing games with signatures. What do you want people to believe? As Parliament, you have put yourself in a very awkward position, and it's no wonder that you are a #1 target of demonstrators against corruption because of your conduct. Then you go, MPs are telling people, including the speaker, it is okay to be corrupt. After all, they are bringing some money to you. How can such a thing happen? Amidst all the controversy surrounding Parliament, sanctions, then conduct makes the situation worse. Then you stifle debate. Even the refusal for Parliament to sit today, as a citizen, I think it is because there was a heated debate yesterday on corruption. That's my interpretation of events.
Not business committee?
No, I don't think so. I'm saying this is my interpretation as a citizen.
The business committee was called at 9. I'm a member of the business committee, ex officio.
Yes.
As a chairperson. It was called at 9. It was ideally supposed to end by midday. But the reason they gave.
Did you end by midday?
No, we ended at about 11.
So what is the reason? Are you the one who called off the plenary?
No.
So you see. Now what should citizens
The speaker is going to meet the president.
There are two speakers.
But that's one of the things we have proposed for the constitutional amendment process. There has been a big debate whenever the speakers had the coinciding trips out of Parliament, when I was a member of Parliament.
There should be a panel.
We did propose that there could be a panel, or now that the president has invited the speaker and the deputy speaker, or when you are making some general debates without resolution. There are some general debates where people should talk and it could be presided over. These are issues you could consider. Should there be an opportunity for reforms?
In Ghana, the LOP chairs Parliament. And the majority leaders chair. But they have a speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, so conclude.
To conclude. Dr.
So, I think the writing is on the wall. By omission or commission, Parliament has demonstrated that they have something to hide when it comes to this debate, and you have made yourself a target by implication, and you should answer to the questions of the citizens because the writing is on the wall.
Let me read some feedback that has come through. Hold on. We need to pay some attention to these people. Okay. Someone comes and says, good evening, panelists. Thank you, Timothy, for the show. This conversation, I wish the whole government would be dissolved to zero. I thought today the commissioners and the speaker, all those involved in the scandals would be brought to behind the headlines. Wonderful. Mr. Dombo and Doctor are off the point. We need them to answer the point of why corruption is becoming a problem. The military is the government. No rule of law. Why are young people storming on the roads? The day this government is gone, not even DRC will contain the number of interesting submission there. Thank you, Timothy, for the show. Thank you for the panel too. Most people may think that corruption is our biggest portrait in the drawings there. But the biggest problem is the extreme incompetence and lack of strategic foresight by our leaders. They lead to get money and to have gross misappropriation of this money, and most of them are politicking instead of doing things we desire. This is Ivan. Thank you very much, Ivan. The last two here, I'm called Ronald. It's true that the speaker is hiding. Sarah Birete is always on point. She has a special place in my heart.
Whose heart?
The gentleman's heart. Kenneth Oluka, president of Cheyo Association in Uganda, representing the Uganda migrants workers. My take is corruption has no excuse. Let those who are suspected first step aside. When we are coming as a panel to have us discuss the migrants and the issues pertaining to migrants that are away. When are we coming to this panel? We need to discuss these issues because the migrants are suffering. Okay, finally. This song of fighting corruption is sung. It is an old song. It's a t-shirt we wear. It is torn, but nothing is being done. But it will not be there anymore. If they dare to, this government will not stay in the next 42 years in power. Okay, interesting. Gentlemen and lady, I'm going to give you parting shots, each of you 2 minutes. I'll start with Doctor. I'll move to Honorable Mwanga, Chris, Dr. Ivan, and finally, Honorable Dombo. Dr. Sarah.
As a country, we need to answer to the demands of the people. Power belongs to the people, whose wishes, demands, aspirations must be answered by the leadership of this country. The second issue causing controversy in Uganda is increasing inequality. Our Gini coefficient index stands at 0.46. That's 46% inequality in the country. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and many Ugandans are drowning with the high cost of living. The leadership must answer to the questions of rising cost of fuel. We have the highest cost of fuel in the country, in the region, after passing the fuel monopoly, where we were told fuel would be cheaper. Instead, it has gone up, and generally people are struggling in this country, even when we have a lot of talk on wealth creation.
Honorable Mwanga.
For me, my take is where I started from. This country deserves good leadership, bottom line. With poor leadership across agencies, even in civil society, even in academia, even everywhere, it's about leadership. If you ask me, it's about leadership stupid. I'm not saying leaders are stupid. It's the quality of leadership we are providing to this country that is a problem. My appeal to young people is that they should focus on Parliament, but they should not lose focus. The biggest challenge to this prevailing situation, the way it is about the 40 years of rule of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Without failed transition. If you had transited, we would not have these indexes. As pathetic as they are, we deserve a transition, and we better address it. Lastly, they should never give up. They should not be discouraged. We have to encourage them. We have to give them inspiration. We have to stand with them, but they must also know that even the old people cannot leave it to young people.
Okay.
It is about Uganda. Actually, the segregation that is us youth, not you elders, is a little bit also genuine causes are all embracing.
Thank you very much. Chris, over to you.
I would like to say that confrontation is more costly for Uganda. I would advise all power contestants to pursue more of dialogue than confrontation. And in a confrontation, it's usually the young people who lose more. Those who cook protests stay in the background, and the young are sent either to beat the security organs, fight with them, or the security organs fight beating them, which is not necessary. And yes, President Museveni has not announced anywhere that he will be in Uganda for the next 2,000 years. A transition will definitely happen. But let us not use that to sow seeds of violence. An anarchical change in Uganda is more detrimental to the young people than any of us here, because they still have hope, more years to live. So we should be very careful about introducing a culture of violence in the young population who are supposed to be take over generally. You cannot give people who are violent in nature to take over leadership. It will be worse for the country. We must build a spirit of consensus. When it comes to issues of parliament, I have analyzed parliament threats. Parliament is the only institution where succession is natural. Honorable Mwakivumbi is not sure that it will be the next parliament until he works hard.
Yeah, I'm not.
70 to 80% off. And most times it becomes under scrutiny from those intending to come in. And my message to them, you want to come to parliament, but don't destroy it. There's parliament the institution, there's parliament the actors. Don't marry the two. The institution is like a pot. You decide what to put there, but don't break the pot. This is always what I've preached. On corruption, somebody is not corrupt, Mr. Nyangweso, because Mangakivumbi has pronounced so. If we believe in the rule of law, if we believe in the constitutionalism, we must fight corruption within the provisions of the law, that someone is innocent until proven guilty. But we are telling young men to prosecute those they perceive to be corrupt on their own whims. Very dangerous for the country.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ivan.
Yeah. Corruption has remained a thorn in the country's efforts towards achievement of sustainable development goals. And these sustainable development goals mainly in areas of education, health, and other areas that can improve the welfare of the population. Secondly, trying to change things too quickly by the government in most cases can bring about irreversible damages. There are implications. And this is reflected in the government being reactive instead of being proactive. The fight against corruption should not always be reactive the way we are doing today. It should be proactive and put in place systems. Secondly, there should be mapping corrupt risk points in budgeting, in allocation of resources and other activities in order to mitigate the too much corruption in the country. Then we should expect goodwill, good political will by the leader. And this good political will may influence or may change the thoughts, the actions, and the behavior of other leaders in order to have collective political will, such as that if the president has a political will to change, against corruption, the prime minister should also sing the same song. The ministers should sing the same song. All heads or chief executives of MDA should sing the same song. The district leaders should sing the same song, but not him singing the song when there is no one. So we need collective political will.
When others are dancing.
Thank you very much. Honorable Dom.
Well, the mission of the National Resistance Movement is to create socio-economic transformation of the population. However much we pretend to be good leaders, leading poor people will not yield much until we transform the society and the people we're in, and most of these young people are part of that. Our members in Parliament, is it time to evaluate whether we could introduce the possibility of a dissolution of Parliament should public perception be felt that that Parliament of the day may not be meeting the needs, like the younger people are saying. In many countries, in some democracies, the current issues happening in the Parliament may have called for a dissolution of Parliament so that we go in for fresh elections and we see whether we can reconstitute Parliament. These are issues that you could consider.
No, dissolution of government. The whole
Dissolution of government.
The whole including a president.
That is what I'm saying. that's what I'm saying.
And that's also costly for the country.
And you call a general election.
No, it is Parliament that has powers to go and look at it. That's why I'm appealing to them. That they could look at it and find out whether they can do anything about it. Then the leaders. We are all elected leaders in their respect in the various levels. Let every leader play their part. The members of Parliament, when you are called to examine loans, do your part. When you must check on government, do your part. Don't just go to lament in the public places or televisions or where, when you have the opportunity to make a contribution through the structured administration that is available. And then finally, where the enjoyment of rights is not absolute, let us find out how the enjoyment of our rights impacts on the rights of others as we all stay in the same country. I wish the young people and all the Ugandans well and good night.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the production team that has made today possible. I want to thank you, Dr. Sarah. Thank you, Honorable Chivumbi. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Dr. Ivan. Honorable Dombo, thank you always for coming through. We'll end with this quote. We cannot direct the wind, but we can adjust our sail. Good morning.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Doi Silva, nze ndi musisi wa chapati wano zone 7 nini factory zone na Tete. Capital yali ntono nnyo nga teweze na mutwale 3.